One of the things that contributes to health influencers' ability to fool people is the language they use to tell a sexy, sciencey sounding story with enough fancy words to make them sound smart, leading up to a conclusion that makes sense if biology followed simple, linear cause and effect models, but it usually doesn't. Vitamin C is a perfect example of this. Let's look at the story a wellness influencer might tell you about vitamin C for severe infections. Let me just put on my influencer hat. 1 second. All right, that's sexy, right? Am I an influencer now? We know that in sepsis, several mediator substances are produced, like TNF-alpha, oxidized lipoproteins, thrombin, and overwhelming production of reactive nitrogen species and reactive oxygen species. So these are the pro-oxidants. This is oxidation. This is inflammation. And these reactive oxygen species damage cellular membranes and cellular junctions, leading to what we call vasodilation. That's the expansion of blood vessels, and ultimately things like disseminated intravascular coagulopathy, or DIC, and other forms of dysfunction in sepsis. Just so you know I'm not making it up, here's famous influencer Rhonda Patrick doing exactly the same thing.
Vitamin C is highly concentrated in immune cells, with neutrophils and leukocytes having 50 to 100 times higher vitamin C concentrations. Neutrophils generate large quantities of reactive oxygen species, but the high levels of vitamin C present in the immune cells protect them. Vitamin C supplementation can enhance neutrophil function in young men as well as in older women. Vitamin C also appears to boost the immune system by promoting the proliferation of T cells and preventing T cell death. Vitamin C also participates in the production of interferon in mice. Interferon is a type of cytokine that signals the body to initiate antiviral defenses.
Thanks, Rhonda. I'll take it back over from here. In critically ill patients, we know that vitamin C levels are markedly decreased. We also know that human beings cannot make our own vitamin C. We have to get it from food or from the outside somehow. So it makes a lot of sense that supplementing would help critically ill patients. We know that it's an antioxidant, so it should help block the effects of all these oxidation reactions happening. Also, remember that I said that the reactive oxygen species and inflammation cause vasodilation? Two of the medications we give for septic shock are norepinephrine and vasopressin. We use them as medications, but ordinarily they're hormones that your body produces that help raise our blood pressure by contracting our arteries. Those hormones reverse vasodilation. And what do you know? Vitamin C actually increases your own body's production of those exact hormones, norepinephrine and vasopressin. It gets even better because vitamin C itself actually has what we call bacteriostatic activity, which means that it prevents bacteria from reproducing and growing. So once again, vitamin C helps prevent bacteria from reproducing and growing. It helps your body produce the same hormones that we use medically to keep blood pressure up. We know that it's an antioxidant. We know that vitamin C is depleted in critically ill patients, and we know that we need it for health and we can't make it on our own. So it sounds extremely logical that giving IV vitamin C in high doses should be done to help septic patients. And this is what influencers do. They give you a chain of reasoning, they use big words, and they declare that based on that chain of reasoning, vitamin C must help in severe infections, and then they make you feel special by implying that you now have secret knowledge that even doctors don't know. The problem is that when you actually test these claims in a study, it doesn't work at all. This 2022 study, published in the New England Journal of Medicine, was a double-blind, placebo-controlled randomized trial comparing high doses of vitamin C, 50 milligrams per kilogram. So for me, that would be more than 4,000 milligrams of vitamin C, IV, every 6 hours for 5 days in 800 critically ill septic patients. And what did they find? In the IV vitamin C group, death occurred in 35%, and in the placebo group, 31%. So there was absolutely no difference or benefit from vitamin C. This is what happens in a real test, not a theoretical chain of reasoning, but an actual experiment. So here are a couple more experimental results. It's important to nuance this. Vitamin C isn't a miracle, but it's also not the case that we see no effects at all. This is the Cochrane review for vitamin C related to the common cold, prevention and treatment, so much milder than sepsis. Here you can see that they are only looking at studies that have a placebo control. Now, what do those studies show? First, in keeping with what we've been discussing, the way people usually use vitamin C, to start taking it in high doses after they get sick, it doesn't work. There's no reduction in duration nor severity of cold symptoms. What about taking vitamin C to prevent colds? That also doesn't work in the general population. In athletes and soldiers who were exposed to both athletic stress and cold temperatures, vitamin C did seem to reduce the frequency of colds by about half. And lastly, although taking vitamin C every day did not prevent people from getting sick, it did reduce the duration of symptoms by about 8%, with a bigger effect, about 18%, seen in children. It's entirely up to you whether taking a vitamin C supplement every single day is worth it in order to make any cold you do get about 8% shorter and 15% milder. But most importantly, none of the influencer biochemical theories mentioned earlier could have predicted the practical real results. Like Yogi Berra once said, in theory, there's no difference between theory and practice, but in practice, there is. And in medicine, we see this happen over and over and over. Even with pharmaceuticals like Zygris or Zetia or hydroxychloroquine for COVID, we hear a cool, sciencey sounding story of biochemistry, and then it just doesn't actually work. And people get so caught up in the story that they can't believe it didn't work, and they keep trying to make it work, and they keep pushing the story even though it's been disproven. You may find yourself feeling that way a little bit now. The vitamin C story I told you before probably felt compelling, and it makes sense. And if you deeply believe in the story, then the real data, the real science, doesn't make sense. And then you have a choice. You can either accept the painful uncertainty and realize that the story is wrong, even though you're not sure where or why, or you can reject the data and try to come up with a reason why it's wrong and why the story is still true. Sherlock Holmes would call that twisting facts to fit theories, instead of theories to fit facts. We see this process over and over with diets, protocols, supplements, medications, and even procedures like heart stents or colonoscopies or mammograms. We can get so attached to the story that we can't let go of it, even when more accurate evidence shows us that the story is wrong. Meanwhile, pharmaceutical companies and influencers get rich pushing snake oil, taking advantage of our very natural and even necessary human tendency to prefer stories over data. If you want to see how this same kind of logical chain of reasoning fails for so-called advanced blood work, check out this video on homocysteine.